do know how to end the war. Despite the Russia hoax, I've always had a good relationship with Putin. And, you know, he wants to end the war. He wants to end it. And I think he's going to be more generous than he has to be. And that's pretty good. That means a lot of good things. Because, frankly, you could have made a great deal if this war never started, you could have made a great deal. I don't know that anything would have had to be given up. This was not a war that was going to start, Brian. And it didn't start. For 4 years, somebody said, well, how do we know that? Well, for 4 years, it didn't start. I used to speak to Vladimir.
This is my video update on this Saturday afternoon, March the 8th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And unfortunately, we are going to start things off with the massacres that are taking place in Syria. At this moment, al-Jawlani and his government of HTS terrorists are going door to door, and they are killing men, women, children, Christians, Alawites, Druze, everybody and anybody who is not loyal to their ideology. And the images that are on the interwebs are absolutely horrific. But for all of the analysts that have been following Syria and the removal of Assad and al-Jawlani and HTS taking over as the government in Syria, this should not come as a surprise. It's shocking to see the brutality of these terrorists. But most people were expecting HTS to eventually remove the masks and show themselves for what they are. Al-Qaeda, IS, a wanted terrorist in al-Jawlani. He was wanted by the U.S. government for $10 million. And then he served his purpose for the collective West. And he replaced Assad. Overthrew, coup d'etat Assad, whatever you want to call it. And then he traded in his military uniform for a suit and tie, declared himself the president, visited the United Nations, shook hands with UN Chief Guterres, had the German foreign minister, Annalena 360, visit him as well. And he played it as if he was a legitimate president of a liberated Syria, which was never the case. Once a terrorist, always a terrorist. And HTS and all of these guys, al-Jawlani, these are nasty people, horrific people. And what we are seeing in Syria is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. The people that fear for their lives are now seeking refuge at the Russian airbase. Once again, it is Russia coming to the rescue of Christians, of Alawites, the Druze, and they're taking in as many people as they can for safety in the Russian airbase. But that's what's happening in Syria. I don't really know what more to say. Erdogan is the guy behind al-Jawlani. Everyone knows that it's Erdogan who's running the show in Syria. So I guess the only thing that I could comment on is if Turkey and Erdogan want this killing to stop, they can stop it. So where is Erdogan? Where is Turkey? Why are they not saying anything? Why are they not telling al-Jawlani to stop what he's doing? So that's the update from Syria. Horrific, man. Absolutely horrific. Let's talk about What should we talk about now? Kursk. Let's shift gears and talk about Kursk. A horrible outcome for Ukraine, for the Ukraine military, for the Zelensky regime. Kursk is a few days away from being encircled. The Sudza area, which Ukraine for the past 6 months has been holding on to. But it looks like we are now at the end game in Kursk. The cauldron should be closing any day now. And yesterday I said that there was about 2,500 to 3,000 Ukraine military who risk being trapped in this cauldron. We are now getting reports, I can't confirm any of this, that the amount of Ukraine soldiers about to be trapped in this cauldron could be anywhere between 4,500 to 10,000, depending on your source. And this is going to be a big defeat for Zelensky, for Ukraine, for the European Union, for NATO, for the United States. We're talking about a very big defeat because the Kursk narrative was giving Ukraine hope and driving the money and the weapons over the past 6 months to the Zelensky regime. It was all about Kursk. You see, we can still fight the Russians. We've captured Russian territory and we're holding on to Russian territory, and that was the narrative over the past 6 months. And Zelensky has been holding on to this narrative. The Europeans have been holding on to this narrative, as has the United States. Proof that Ukraine can win the war. That's what Kursk was all about, right? And for Zelensky, Kursk played a key part in his plan for negotiations. He was going to trade Kursk for a territory that Russia holds. That was what Zelensky was talking about over the past 6 months. His big negotiation plan, his bargaining chip. That's what Kursk was. But the Russians, they used Kursk as a trap. That's how they used Kursk. They kept the pathways into Kursk open, and they allowed the Ukraine military to continue to feed men and material into Kursk. And the Russians, they really didn't have to go anywhere, did they? The Russian military did not have to move. They could just sit in Russian territory. And it was a turkey shoot, pretty much. And they were able to destroy upwards of 60,000 Ukraine soldiers, annihilate 60,000 plus Ukraine soldiers and thousands of NATO equipment. A very, very heavy price to pay for the Ukraine military so that they can push a narrative of some sort of Ukraine military victory. And now it's all coming to an end. The Telegraph has an article with the title, 10,000 Ukrainian troops at risk of encirclement. And I would say that what is happening in Kursk plays a part in all of the panic that we have been seeing in Europe, in NATO, the United States, over the past couple of weeks. I believe that all of the talk about going to war with Russia, Macron talking about pacifying Russia, Poland talking about building a huge military, Trump's post on Truth Social the other day, I'll get to that in a minute. All of this panic, a lot of it is from the collective West, is about Kursk. They understood that Kursk is coming to an end. And when Kursk comes to an end, man, they've got nothing. The collective West in this proxy war are left with absolutely nothing. You want to talk about holding no cards, what Trump told Zelensky in the White House the other day, you have no cards. Well, in the next couple of days, Zelensky and the European Union, NATO, the United States in this proxy war, they will have absolutely zero cards. This is going to be a big defeat for the collective West. I would say that this is going to probably be the biggest defeat, at least from an info war narrative perspective, as well as a military perspective, because they lost so much for absolutely nothing, the Ukraine military, but from a media PR narrative point of view, this is going to be devastating for Zelensky and for the collective West. So that's the situation in Kursk, and let's talk about the post from Trump on Truth Social, because panic was very much in this post. Trump put this up on Truth Social yesterday, based on the fact that Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now. I am strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached. To Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it's too late. Thank you. Thank you with 3 exclamation marks. That was what Trump posted on Truth Social. Now, there are a lot of analysts who are looking at this post and they're saying that this threat to Russia, well, an admission that things are going terrible on the battlefield for Ukraine because of Kursk, because of the huge strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure the other day. There's an admission, a realization that Ukraine is absolutely losing this military conflict from Trump. But there are analysts who say, yeah, he's threatening sanctions on Russia. But really what this is Trump telling Zelensky, you better negotiate. This is your last chance. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. This is very much directed towards Ukraine rather than Russia. But there is a threat to Russia. There is that threat to Russia. And the Russians are going to read this and they're going to say, there you go. There you go, Trump. 1 step forward and 2 steps back in our rapprochement and normalization. Once again, threatening us with sanctions, very much the way that the Biden administration did. But I would also argue that this post has a lot of Kellogg in it, a lot of Kellogg, maybe a little bit of NSA Director Waltz, in that they are starting to see that there, as a proxy war, that their leverage over Russia with the loss of Kursk will completely vanish. And I think there's a lot of panic in this post. The realization that whatever cards you thought you had, as Kellogg, as Waltz, people who believed that they actually had some sort of leverage over Russia in the Trump administration, they're starting to finally realize, I hope they're starting to finally realize, that they have zero leverage and that they are indeed losing the war on the ground, the actual war on the front lines. So I think there's a lot of them in this post, a lot of panic from the Trump White House, as well as telling Ukraine to get to the negotiation table. Get to the negotiation table because your military is collapsing and we need to get to some sort of a ceasefire before it all falls apart. That's why I say there's some Kellogg and Waltz in this. It does remind me very much of the Baltsovo and the panic of the Baltsovo in 2014, 15, I believe 2015, when the Ukraine military and many NATO soldiers, at least the reports claim that there were many NATO soldiers, were trapped in a cauldron in Debaltsevo, and in a moment of panic, Merkel called Putin and begged Putin for ceasefire, and Putin gave it to her. Long story short, Putin gave it to her, and we got Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. But there's a lot of that in this Trump Truth Social post. That's why he's saying, get to the negotiations table before it all crumbles on the front lines. So that was the post on Truth Social. They're not talking about North Korean troops anymore, are they, huh? Remember the whole story, North Korean troops in Kursk? They're not talking about that anymore. Now that Kursk is going to completely fall apart, we're going to forget about all of the narratives that were spun in and around Kursk are just going to be forgotten. So Zelensky, he said that he was going to be traveling to Saudi Arabia to try and gate crash the negotiations that are going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia between Yermak and Waltz, Rubio, and who else? And Witkoff. They're going to be in Saudi Arabia, I believe, on Tuesday, and they will be negotiating with Yermak. And Zelensky, he posted on X that he's going to be planning a trip to Saudi Arabia. Now, he claims that this was the trip to Saudi Arabia that he postponed from the time when he tried to gate crash the Russia-US negotiations in Riyadh. And then the Saudis told him, no, we're not going to let you into these negotiations. But if you want to visit Saudi Arabia, go ahead. You can come to Saudi Arabia with your wife and do some tourism or whatever. But we're not going to let you into these negotiations. It looks like Zelensky is trying again to gate crash these negotiations, but it also looks like the Saudis and the Americans are telling him, no, we're not going to let you into these meetings. And they're telling him that they don't want him in these meetings because what Witkoff and Kellogg, especially Kellogg and Waltz, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get Yermak to agree to a ceasefire. That's what they want. They want Ukraine to agree to a ceasefire, even though Russia has said no ceasefire. They want to leave Saudi Arabia with the Ukrainians saying, okay, we'll agree to a ceasefire, and then they can take that ceasefire to Russia, and they're going to try to convince Putin and Russia to agree to a ceasefire. I'll talk about that in a bit as well, because we do have an interesting article from Bloomberg on Russia and a possible agreement to a ceasefire. But President Trump was in the Oval Office, and as has now become tradition, as he was signing executive orders, he gave another mini press conference. And in this press conference, much of it was focused on Project Ukraine, which is taking up, it seems like Project Ukraine is taking up 80% of Trump's energy and focus. Unfortunately, because if he had listened to the Duran, he would have exited Project Ukraine right after inauguration. And he's had many opportunities ever since inauguration to exit Project Ukraine. And then you can just explain it as Biden's war, Biden's mess. We're winding this thing down and we're out of here. But he chose the path of negotiator. He wants to negotiate this. And it's proving a lot more difficult, I believe, than he ever imagined. But he said that things are going well with Russia. He feels like with Russia, they're very close to some sort of an understanding. Trump told reporters that Putin absolutely wants a deal. And he said that Russia and Putin are a lot easier to deal with as he's trying to negotiate this thing out than Ukraine and Zelensky. He actually said that Russia is easier to deal with than Ukraine. He also said that Russia holds all the cards and Ukraine has no cards. And once Kursk concludes, yeah, Russia holds absolutely every single freaking card. Not even the sanctions threats are going to throw Russia off or scare Russia, because they already have 190,000 sanctions against them, whatever, 60,000. I think it's more like 60 or 40,000 sanctions from the collective West are directed towards Russia. But yeah, things are going to get a lot worse for Trump's negotiating position vis-a-vis Russia once Kursk is over with. But Trump did say during this press conference that if Ukraine does not agree to whatever the U.S. is bringing in Saudi Arabia, ceasefire, I think we all know that the U.S. is going to bring or demand that Ukraine agree to a ceasefire. If they don't agree to the U.S.'s terms for peace talks, then Trump said, we're out of here. He did say that. He actually said, we're out of here. We're done. So let's see if he means it. Well, let's see if Ukraine agrees. If Yermak, it's not even Zelensky, if Yermak agrees to a ceasefire, of course Zelensky's going to have to agree to it as well. Yermak's going to have to take this back to Zelensky and to the British, because the British ultimately are the people that are puppeteering Zelensky, and they're going to have to agree to a U.S. ceasefire, to the U.S. terms for a ceasefire. If they don't, then Trump said, we are out of here. It'll be an interesting week next week. I wonder why the U.S. just doesn't tell Starmer and the U.K., we want a ceasefire, so tell your guy Zelensky, because you're now running Zelensky. Ever since Sullivan and Blinken and Nuland left the scene, now you guys have taken over the strings of the Green Goblin. Just tell them to agree to our terms for a ceasefire. How come they just don't contact the UK and do everything via the UK? Why are we going through this song and dance of Saudi Arabia and Yermak, Waltz, Witkoff, Kellogg, or Rubio, not Kellogg, Rubio negotiations? Maybe it's all theater. Maybe what we're seeing is theater. We'll see. We'll see how everything develops next week. So on the topic of negotiations, Bloomberg put out an interesting article. Now, Bloomberg has not been the the most reliable of sources when it comes to Project Ukraine. They've been absolutely awful in their coverage of Project Ukraine, putting out fake story after fake story. And now they're saying that Putin, according to their anonymous sources, it's always those anonymous sources, that Putin is agreeing to a ceasefire if certain conditions are met. The title of Bloomberg's article is Russia's Putin is said to be ready to agree to Ukraine truce with conditions. And the conditions, according to Bloomberg, are that the peacekeepers in Ukraine will not be EU or NATO, but forces that Russia approves of. For example, Chinese peacekeepers. That's pretty much the big condition of a truce that, according to Bloomberg, Putin is ready to agree. Now, Trump did say the other day in the White House that Putin wants a deal, and he said that I know he wants a deal, and only I know that he wants a deal. So he did say that. Maybe Trump is referring to this report, these reports from Bloomberg. I don't know. Maybe Putin told him this. I said in my video update yesterday, there is that possibility that maybe Putin, as he was talking to Trump, did say that if certain conditions are met, I'll agree to some sort of a pause. I don't know. The Russians publicly, they have been saying no ceasefire, no pause. That has been their official position. Publicly, their official position. So I don't believe Bloomberg. I just want to say that right off the bat. I don't believe Bloomberg. I don't believe their sources. But I have to be honest with you guys. There could be a 5 or 10% chance that this may be the case. I'll put it at 10%. That maybe there was some discussion and there was some talk about a truce if certain conditions are met. Bloomberg said that in Saudi Arabia, they outlined the conditions, the Russians, to the U.S., the conditions that have to be met in order for some sort of a truce to be agreed on. So it could be possible, 10% chance, that what the Trump White House is betting on is that Putin has given his conditions for a truce, and they're going to take those conditions and present them to Ukraine, and they're going to try to to push Ukraine to agree to Russia's truce ceasefire terms. I don't know, but here is what Bloomberg said. In order to agree to a cessation of hostilities, there would have to be a clear understanding about the framework principles of the final peace accord. Two people with knowledge of the matter said, Russia will insist in particular on establishing the parameters of an eventual peacekeeping mission, including agreement on which countries would take part, said another person familiar with the issue. What do you guys think? Do you believe this reporting from Bloomberg? As I said, I don't believe it, but I will give it a 10% chance that it's accurate, and I'll leave it at 10%. But I don't buy it. I'll still hold to the belief that Russia, if there were to be some sort of a peace, they will want Istanbul plus. That will be their terms, as Putin outlined in June of 2024 at the Foreign Ministry. And that will require the Ukraine military to leave the entirety of the 4 new Russian oblasts, Kherson, Zaporozhye, as well as Donetsk and Lugansk. And Ukraine will never agree to this. I would be shocked if Yermak agrees to any type of ceasefire as well. So that's Bloomberg. The Financial Times, they posted a crazy article where they say that an East European country or an East European politician is talking about preemptive strikes against Russia. The article from the Financial Times is Return of the Two Europes. Donald Trump's turn to Moscow is restoring the geography of the Cold War. And in this article, towards the very end, the Financial Times reports that I put it to a major Eastern European politician that Western European states care little about wars in Eastern Europe. He replied, we know. That's why some of our countries are asking, why don't we attack Russia now instead of sitting, waiting for it to attack us? Small nations that can disappear have everything at stake. It's stupid. It's just a stupid statement. I believe this reporting, actually. I believe that there's a couple of politicians in some East European countries. I'll take a guess, and I will say the Baltics. It's the wild guess. Maybe Poland. I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure there's quite a few politicians who are so pumped up on their delusion of NATO and the EU and all of that stuff and buy into all of the nonsense propaganda about Russia over the past 3 years, shovels and washing machine chips and stuff like that. But they believe that they can actually launch a preemptive strike against Russia. It's nonsense, but I'm sure there are politicians who are high on their own supply in Eastern Europe, or high on Zelensky's supply maybe in Eastern Europe. Interesting abandoned building, huh? I bet you if you fix that up, it would be super nice. Not a bad location either. Pretty close to the Acropolis, pretty close to Sindangma, Singru right here, museum right over here as well. Anyway, that's the article from the Financial Times. I wouldn't be too bothered or worried about these statements from these East European politicians. What is interesting and could be of concern is Tusk's statements. Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister of Poland, he's in panic mode because of Kursk. I think Kursk really woke up the collective West to the fact that everything they've been hearing about Project Ukraine is BS and that Russia is absolutely winning this military war, winning the entirety of the war. I think Kursk is really waking them up to all the propaganda that they were getting, that they were sourcing, most of it from Ukraine and from UK. Those were the sources of propaganda, especially the military propaganda. It was coming from the UK Ministry of Defense and the Ukraine Ministry of Defense, most of it. But Tusk now is absolutely panicking, and he's talking about creating a Polish military of up to 500,000 soldiers. It's a big military. He is talking about training all of Poland's military-aged men, getting them all trained up, just in case. And this is the concerning part, the very concerning part. He is talking about Poland getting nuclear weapons. And this is something that Russia will never allow, at least I would imagine. Russia will never allow Poland to obtain nuclear weapons. Never. Never, ever, never, ever, ever. Poland trying to get nuclear weapons, I think, would be very dangerous for the world, actually. That's something that could put the world into some sort of a big, wider war, World War III, if Poland actually pursues nuclear weapons. I can't imagine Russia allowing any of this nuclear weapon stuff happening for Poland to get nuclear weapons and control the nuclear weapons. Because I think that Poland would actually use them. I don't know, something tells me that there are leaders in Poland that would actually try their luck and use some of these weapons. I don't know. I think a lot of the leadership, like Sikorsky, these guys they're just so crazy and have such a hatred towards Russia that you cannot trust nuclear weapons in their hands. Impossible. But that's what Tusk is saying. That is what Tusk is saying. Politico is reporting Poland seeks access to nuclear arms and looks to build 500,000-man army. Already a major spender within NATO, Warsaw has massive military plans as fears grow about the reliability of the U.S. as an ally against Russia. We must be aware that Poland must reach for the most modern capabilities, also related to nuclear weapons and modern unconventional weapons. This is a race for security, not for war, he said. Tusk said. Tusk pointed to the example of Ukraine, which gave up its nuclear arsenal and is now being attacked by Russia. Yeah, Tusk is an idiot, man. Tusk has never been the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he's a very committed and loyal globalist. Very committed, very loyal to the globalist cause. But he's a fool if he actually buys into the whole Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons. I am not going to get into this. I am not going to explain this. I think I've explained it 1,000 times. Alexander's explained it 10,000 times. The Duran, we've explained the whole Ukraine nuclear weapons thing 100 million freaking times. Tusk, if you're watching this video, man, just click on any video on the Duran and you have a pretty good chance of getting an explanation on the whole Ukraine Budapest memorandum and stuff like that. Anyway, you'll learn the true history of what happened if you go to the Duran, Donald Tusk. But that's the excuse that he's using. Look at what happened to Ukraine when they gave up the nuclear weapons that they never had. And we now need to get nukes. Which is actually a weird justification, isn't it? He claims, in Tusk's itsy-bitsy mind, he claims his logic is that Ukraine once had nuclear weapons and they gave them up, and now Russia attacked them. So Poland, which never had nuclear weapons, should get nuclear weapons in order to prevent a Russian attack. It's just dumb, man. It's just absolutely dumb. Anyway, that's what Tusk said. Give it 6 months to a year. Once the hysteria of Kursk and the realization that they've lost this war, once it starts to settle, all of this stuff will, from the Europeans, I believe they'll start to, I don't want to say calm down, but they'll face the reality. You know what's going to happen? And Alexander was talking about this in his video update yesterday. What's going to happen is that they're going to run into the reality that that, yeah, they want to build huge militaries and they want to get nukes and they want to fight Russia, but in 6 months to a year, the people of Europe are not going to be interested in this type of stuff, especially when the member states of the EU start cutting pensions, start taxing the citizens more in order to build up this big defense fund, in order to put money into this big defense fund that they want to create. The people will start to say, you know, it's been a year since the conflict in Ukraine. It's over. I'm not going to give up my pension. I'm not going to give up my health care just so you can put money into some sort of defense fund that half of the money is going to disappear into who knows whose pocket, right? Once again, just look at the big pot of money that they created for the coup and the jab, and you'll understand what's going to happen with the money that they want to put into this EU defense fund. So should we do another story here? Another couple more stories? The Telegraph is reporting that Trump is considering pulling out troops from Germany, 35,000 U.S. troops who are currently in Germany, and moving them to Hungary, is according to the UK Telegraph. I don't believe it. I don't know. Maybe it's true, but the Telegraph is like Bloomberg. They're reporting on Project Ukraine, and everything in and around Project Ukraine has been absolutely terrible. Once again, anonymous officials telling the Telegraph that they heard in the Trump White House that Trump is considering moving 35,000 troops from Germany because he's upset with Germany and moving them to Hungary. Who knows? Perhaps. Perhaps, but I don't see this happening. Maybe the US wants to create a larger presence in Hungary, a military presence. That I can see, given Trump's relationship with Orbán. But completely pulling out a large part of the US forces in Germany and moving them to Hungary, that's a pretty big deal. It could happen, I guess. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's possible. It's possible. But it's the Telegraph, and I don't trust the Telegraph. I'll wait for some more reliable sources to report on this before I buy into it. So Macron, he replied to what Putin said the other day about Napoleon entering Russia, and that Macron has not learned from history. And this was Putin's reply to Macron's war speech, where he talked about pacifying Russia, that Europe is only going to find peace when it pacifies and defeats Russia. That's what Macron said 2-3 days ago. Putin replied to that, and he basically said that little Napoleon obviously has not learned the lesson of what happened to Napoleon. Little Napoleon has not learned the lesson of what happened to the real Napoleon. And Macron, he has replied to Putin's reply. And Reuters has an article with the title, "Macron hits back at Russian fury, says Kremlin feels exposed." So this article from Reuters, with a quote from Macron, is saying that Macron made these comments about Russia, pacifying Russia, in order to bait Putin, so that the world is revealed to Putin's true intentions as an imperial colonial empire or something like that. Yeah, Macron is basically saying, he's flip-flopping, man. Macron is preparing a big flip-flop. He's saying that he made those comments because he wanted to draw Putin and Putin's intentions out. And it all goes back to Minsk. What Putin said about Napoleon, according to Macron, is proof that Putin cannot be trusted, and Putin lied about Minsk. So we cannot trust Putin, and I was very clever in making my war speech, pacify Russia statement, because I have revealed the true man that is Vladimir Putin, the true intentions of Vladimir Putin. Here is what Reuters is saying. I know President Putin well. If he's reacting like this, it's because he knows what I said is true, Macron told reporters at an EU summit in Brussels. He's making a historical error. Napoleon waged conquests. The only imperialistic power I see in Europe right now is Russia, he said, responding to a question posed by a Russian journalist in exile in France. Macron said he knew Putin could betray his word because he had done just that when it did not respect the Minsk agreement signed with France, Germany, and Ukraine after the invasion of Crimea in 2014. Yeah, Macron, man, is playing 10D chess, man. 10D freaking chess from Macron. Super smart, man, Emmanuel Macron. He fooled Putin, all right. He's really harping on the whole Minsk agreement. Russia lied with the Minsk agreement. He's really doubling and tripling down on that, isn't he? Even though the truth is that it was Macron and Merkel and Poroshenko and Hollande that lied about Minsk. And Macron knows this, but he's trying to rewrite history and trying to convince everyone that it was Putin and Russia that did not honor Minsk. And he's doing all of this because he wants to somehow take this to the United States and the Trump White House and paint a picture of a Putin that cannot be trusted. So stick with Project Ukraine, stick with Europe, and please stop negotiating with Russia. That's basically why Macron is talking so much about Minsk and lying about who really broke the Minsk agreement. So let's do some clown worlds and we can wrap this video up. And the first clown world is courtesy of The Economist. And they have a new Churchill. It's not Zelensky. Zelensky's been fired. Zelensky, you're no longer Churchill. The new Churchill, according to The Economist, is 008, Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer. Starmer is the new Churchill. Winston Starmer, says The Economist on their cover. Can he pull it off? It's got a very goofy picture of a Starmer looking like Churchill. Can he pull it off? Will the real Winston Churchill please stand up? Please stand up. Poor Zelensky. He's probably seeing this article cover from The Economist. He's probably saying, but holy heck, I thought I was Churchill. They've given the part to Starmer. I can't believe this. Call my agent. Call my agent, I want to complain. Yeah, everyone's Churchill, man. Everyone's Churchill. Everyone's Neville Chamberlain. This is just getting to the point of absurd. It's as if the only two people that ever existed in all of British history is Churchill and Neville Chamberlain. That's it. There's only two people. You're either Neville Chamberlain or you're Churchill. Churchill, Neville Chamberlain. Which one are you? Oh, boy. New York Post has an article with the title, Pop Goes the Easel. Hunter claims he can't sell art and is broke now that daddy's out of power. Oh, man, that's brutal. That is brutal, man. Poor Hunter. Can't sell his art anymore. Renaissance man, no more. He was a Renaissance man, a painter, an investor, an energy expert, a real estate expert, a master chemist, mixing ingredients. Very good with the camera, photography. He was a Renaissance man, but an author. He's an author, but now he can't sell a painting. I wonder why. What happened? What happened? And all of a sudden, his art has no value. What happened? Why is his art not selling? I don't know. I don't know. I'll buy a Hunter, an original Hunter for, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 bucks. I don't know. How much does an original Hunter go for nowadays? Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. The link to the Duran shop is in the description box down below. Take care.